I think the person who invented horror movies must have had real psychological problems. What benefit is there spending hours watching vampires, werewolves, decapitated heads with arteries spurting blood? Horror movies are just a waste of time, and I'm sick of constantly seeing them on TV. Do you think these horror movies affect our heart and nerves? Will they somehow bring about our deaths in due course? My name is Melina. I am 15 years old. My mom died during childbirth when my brother Martin was born. It was my responsibility to take care of him. My friends called me Melina the Horrible because I really hated horror movies. Even if they only had a smattering of corpses, scary monsters, an insane madman wearing masks and stabbing people at random acts of cruelty. Creators of these movies had to be deranged. We really don't need those kinds of movies. There's enough cruelty and misery in the real world as it is. They did humanity no favor. My friends all made fun of me. They said I was just a coward. But that wasn't it. They just don't get it. It was impossible for them to change my mind, though, but they never stopped trying. Then, one day, I had to face a horror that was all too real. Before that day, I was preparing to submit a drawing for the school exhibition. I had worked on that drawing for more than 2 years. I wanted to win the Best Artist Award of the year. It was on this fateful day, after I had finished my masterpiece, that my nightmare unfolded right before my eyes. I woke up to the sound of my alarm clock. I had overslept an hour and was late for school. I grabbed a shirt that I had washed the night before, but it was still all wet. I tried to iron it, but I burned a hole in it instead because I was in such a hurry. I was literally running out of time, so I grabbed a t-shirt instead. I packed some breakfast in a bag, took my drawing, and ran to school. I was so focused on rushing to school that I didn't notice the mud pile up ahead, or the car coming from the side road, until it drove right through the puddle and splashed muddy water all over me. Well, at least my drawing was safe. Finally, I got to school, but the outside door was locked, and I couldn't get in. Frantic, I knocked on the door, and the school security guard looked at me through the small hole in the door. I told him that I was late for the exhibition and needed to get in quick. He looked at me with suspicion, but thankfully he opened the door. The principal was standing there with him, eyeing me through her thick glasses and asking me why I was so late. I told her that I was running late for the art exhibition and that I couldn't speak now, but that I would come to her office afterwards and fully explain myself. Without a moment to lose, I headed towards my classroom. Suddenly, I heard a sound as if the herd of elephants were coming my way. The lesson had just ended. Everyone was moving to their next class. I was like a pebble tossed in stormy seas, jostled right and left. Then the flood hit my drawing, carrying it downstream only to fall on the floor and get trampled on. I watched in shock as the whole disaster happened. I spent the rest of the school day sitting quietly at my desk. I didn't do any classwork, didn't feel like talking to anyone either. At the end of the day, after all the students had gone home, I was sitting alone in the schoolyard, watching the sunset. The guard told me that I needed to go home because he had to lock up. So, I got up and started walking. My home was a good distance away from school. I had no money for a bus or a taxi, so I had to hoof it home. Then, I came to a street that had been roadblocked. Workers were working on the road, and I couldn't pass through, so I had to take a detour around the roadblock and somehow ended up walking down a dark street. I didn't like dark roads. Maybe I should have just waited for the workers to finish their work. But then again, it would have been quite late. I continued down the dark road. I knew Dad would be worried, so I hurried along. It was just a dark road, nothing to be afraid of. I mean, it's not like I believe in horror movies. What am I afraid of anyway? What's the worst that can happen? Suddenly, I heard a sound on the other side of the street. It sounded like a voice moaning in pain. I ignored it and continued on my way, walking a little more quickly now. Then, the moaning sound turned into a snarl, and I heard footsteps behind me. I sped up my pace. I imagined the dark shadow following me, was gaining in on me, getting closer and closer. Could it be a ghost? A dead spirit? I stopped, and so did the footsteps. I felt their presence awfully close, so I turned around to face it. I saw a blue face, sunken shadows of the eyes, a stiff body, fangs in the mouth. A zombie! My brain screamed. I felt the blood drain from my face. I screamed. He snarled, and I ran. As I was running, another zombie appeared in front of me, trapping me between the two of them. What should I do? I had to do something. So, with all my strength, I swung my bag around in a circle and struck the one in front of me. He fell to the ground, and I ran past him, and I heard snarling again on the other side of the street. This must be a dream, I thought, but unfortunately, it was all too real. I kept running. Groups of zombies were gathering everywhere. Their appearances were disgusting and terrifying at the same time. I never want to see horror movies, but now they had decided to come to me instead. I ran, fell down, got back up, and ran some more. The street seemed really long. Suddenly, I saw a huge zombie crossing the road and getting in front of me. He was larger than the rest and had a large hunting knife stuck in his head. I screamed and fell down, slowly moving backwards, trying to keep my distance from him. Soon, I was surrounded by two of them again. This really wasn't my day at all, and it was going to end up with me being zombie meal. I thought of Dad and my friends and what they would think about me being eaten by the thing I despise most. Zombies broke out through the hedges and surrounded me. The big zombie pulled the knife out of his head and prepared to stab me, but I made the heroic effort and grabbed the knife from his hand and stabbed him with it instead. But the knife crumbled. It was paper, and unexpectedly, all the zombies gathered round and removed their faces, and all my friends shouted, "Happy Halloween!" I was angry and mortified, and relieved. They praised me for my courage and apologized for pranking me. They had told passers-by to avoid this dark street so that they could pull their prank. They even enlisted some volunteers to help them with the prank. I was still in mild shock, waiting for my breathing and heartbeat rates to return to normal. To comfort me, they presented me with a zombie doll as a memento of this night. After I finally got home, I told Dad about the whole thing, and he rolled over the floor laughing. I was so glad this day was over. I was right. None of it was real. Just that second, something made me glance at the zombie doll, and it turned its head to stare at me.